All right, so we are on the home stretch now. Let's start getting the power pellets to work. I'm going to right click our nodes folder, and I'm going to create an empty object, and I'm going to call this power pellet nodes. And then we are going to drag all of our nodes that are power pellets into this folder. So we're going to start out by clicking this one right here. Cut. And paste as child. And we'll do the same for the other side. Luckily, they're symmetrical, so it's pretty easy. Then we're also going to get this one down here, not the bottom one, but right above. Let's paste as child. And finally, the last power pellet node. And paste as child. Awesome. So now we're going to need to change our pellet sprite to be our power pellet, which is in our sprites folder. So let's do that for each one. You're going to notice that the pellets are going to be way too big. So what we're going to do is scale our X and Y down to be about 0.8. Now I don't think we can do it for all of them at the same time, but maybe we'll try it. 0.8, 0.8. Did that work for everyone? Oh, it did. Okay, neat. So now we've got our power pellets created on the game board. Now, if you play the actual Pac-Man game, you'll notice that they're going to blink. So what we're going to do is go to our node controller, and first of all, we need to know whether or not it's a power pellet. So public bool is power pellet. By default, we're going to set it to false. Most of them are going to be false. And then we're going to create public float power pellet blinking timer equal to 0. And then an update, we just want to, if you don't have this game manager.game is running return, add that. I think I added it off camera. And we're going to say if is power pellet, or is power pellet, and we still have the pellet, then we are going to increment our timer by time.delta time, and we're going to say if power pellet blinking timer is greater than or equal to like 0.1, then power pellet blinking timer is going to be 0 again, and pellet sprite dot enabled equals not pellet sprite dot enabled. So you're basically setting it to the opposite of what it currently is. All right, so let's load up Unity and see if that works. The first thing we're going to have to do is make sure that we highlight all of our nodes and set is power pellet to true. Let's do that. And then I think it should work, but who knows? Luckily for this, we don't have to add any animations. Right now, it's not blinking because the game's not running, which is good. And then, yeah, okay, so they're blinking. And they're not doing anything right now, but that's fine. So, whoops, I believe, yeah, so collected pellet, and we're sending in the node controller. So in our game manager, on collected pellet, we have access to our node controller. So what we're going to do, if node controller dot is power pellet, then we need to do a whole bunch of stuff. So first of all, we're going to stop our siren. Oh wait, stop. Because we are going to have another audio source, power pellet sound.play, which we don't have yet, but we're going to add that later. Is power pellet running is going to be set to true, and we don't have that yet either. Same with current power pellet time equal to 0. So let's start creating these up here. First thing we're going to need to do is create our audio source. So public audio source, power pellet, audio. And then is power pellet running is going to be a bool. And by default, we're going to set it to false. And current power pellet time, we'll set that to 0. And we're just going to move these down. Just because we're dealing with them now, so if they're at the bottom, they're easier to find. Okay, let's scroll down. Power pellet sound. What did we name that up here? Power pellet audio. Whoops. So power pellet audio dot play. That works. And now we are going to want to access our red ghost controller. And we want to set frightened to true. We're just going to make this function right after. Pink, blue, orange. Okay, so let's go to our enemy controllers and create that function now. We're going to have public, set frightened, or void, set frightened, and new is frightened. And we're going to say is frightened equals new is frightened. Oh, and I need to set that to be a bool. Is frightened. All right, so now when we eat our power pellet, it's going to stop our siren. It's going to play our power pellet music. Game manager.is power pellet running is going to be equal to true. And what we're going to do here, I mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it again. So the ghosts are not going to be running, like we can't make it a global is frightened. And the reason why is because if Pac-Man eats one of the ghosts, that ghost will no longer be frightened, but the other ones still will be. So we're going to have a global timer to determine if the power pellet is still running. And all the ghosts that haven't been eaten will automatically turn off once that global timer has been reached. But we're also going to keep track of it in our enemy controller. So that's why we have this set frightened. So if we get eaten, we're going to set frightened to false for the individual ghost. So up top, we're just going to create a public. Oh, whoops. So up top, we're just going to create another timer, public float, power pellet timer. We're not going to edit this one. We're going to set this to 8. So once our current power pellet time reaches our power pellet timer, we will no longer be in our power pellet mode. So update, let's see, we're going to say if is power pellet running, current power pellet time plus equals time dot delta time. We're going to say if current power time is greater than or equal to power pellet timer, then is power pellet running equals false, and current power pellet time is going to be set back to 0. And then we're going to have to set our audio to stop and our siren to play again. And then another thing we're going to also need to do is have a multiplier. So if you eat a ghost during a power pellet, you get 400 points. If you eat another one, you get 800. If you get another one, you get 1600. So it's going to run on a timer. So we are going to have public int power pellet multiplier equal to 1. And if we are done our power pellet, we're going to set power pellet multiplier back to 1. And then if we eat a power pellet, so if is power pellet, then power pellet multiplier plus equals 1. Okay. So now our game manager should know if we still have a power pellet running or not. However, our ghosts will only know right now if we started running the power pellet. So we need to know when the power pellet expires. This is going to be really easy. We're just going to say if game manager dot is power pellet running. We're going to set a exclamation mark beforehand. So if it's not running, then set is frightened to false. So if the game manager is not running a power pellet, we are never frightened. So that's how we're going to handle turning it back off. Okay, now let's load up our game. They're not going to turn blue or anything because we have not set that to work yet. But let's at least see if the game manager will recognize that we've eaten a power pellet and turn it off once the timer is done. Okay, so if we click our game manager and scroll to the bottom, power pellet multipliers 1. Oh, sorry, I actually did something wrong here. If we go down to collected power pellet, where is that? Oh, that's in our game manager. We do not want to increment our power pellet multiplier by 1 by eating a pellet. We want to increment it by 1 when we eat a ghost, which we're going to do later. So don't worry about that right now. Now you're going to see, is power pellet running? For me, it's right here. So I'm going to run over and eat a power pellet and see what happens here. So, it is power pellet running is set to false. So something is not quite working. Did we make sure to set our nodes to be power pellets? It is a power pellet. So if our game manager eats a power pellet, is power pellet running is true. Current power pellet time equals 0. Okay. So current power pellet time plus equals time delta time. That looks like it should be working. So that's a little bit strange. Maybe it's because I made a change. I'm going to actually just restart the game, because it looks like it should be working, but I could be missing something somewhere. So let's go find, is power pellet running? If we eat this, oh, we're actually getting, oh, I see what's happening. Value cannot be null. We're missing something here, and that would be our audio source. So our power pellet audio, we didn't set that yet. So I'm going to minimize all these just to make it easier. And then we're going to add another audio source. We do not want to play it on awake. We will loop. Actually, no, we don't loop this one, I don't think. Audio, power pellet. Drag that in. Then we want to drag the audio source. It looks like they unminimize themselves for some reason, which is annoying. Just going to drag it all the way up to power pellet audio. Now let's load up the game. I do not want to get eaten. Is power pellet running? Okay. Oh, they are turning blue. Okay, that did work. And our power pellet audio should be looping. Set that to, so turn your game off and set loop to be true. Then wait for it to reload. Sorry, I actually did my last recording a few days ago, so I forgot that we even got the blue working. All right, let's turn this. So there's one thing I'm noticing right away. You cannot be frightened if you're in home. So let's just edit our code in our enemy controller. Let's go to our update. We're going to do this at the top. We want this to work no matter what. We're going to say if, what was the ghost node state, does not equal ghost node state enum dot moving an index, then is frightened equals false. So we can actually just say or, and then get rid of the second if statement. Okay, so if we are not moving an index, or that means basically if we're not in home, then we can never be frightened. So let's try loading up the game again and make sure that that works. I'm not actually sure. I don't remember if we coded it or not for Pac-Man to eat the ghost, but I don't think we did. So right now, okay, that's good. And it's simply going through them. So, but it won't go through this one. That's good. So you're going to notice that the Power Pellet song was still playing when we got eaten. That's not good. So let's go to Game Manager, Player Eaten. We should see siren siren.stop. I had siren 1 when I was making the first one. That's why sometimes I type it out. Actually, let's go to stop game. It's probably in there. Siren.stop. We're just going to type in Power Pellet audio.stop. Okay, so now if we get eaten right away, it should turn off that audio for us. And since we're coming up near the end of this, there's probably going to be a bunch of little bugs like this that we have to fix, which is completely okay. Let's try that again. Great. One thing that I'm curious about is what happens if we are running a Power Pellet and then we beat a level. I don't think it'll work. I'm going to fast forward to that. Okay, so I'm looking to make sure the ghost node states are reset so that they're not blue anymore. And I also want to see about the audio. Okay, that actually worked entirely. That's great. So now we need to set up Pac-Man eating a ghost. So let's go to our game manager and find the player eaten. We're going to create another one called Ghost Eaten. We actually don't need numerator for this. Sorry, we're going to put void. We're going to have another function that is going to have that. Public IE numerator. And we're just going to call this pause game. And we're going to send in time to pause. And we're just going to say game is running equals false. And then yield new return, wait for seconds, time to pause. And then, oh, it's yield return new. And then game is running equals true. So we're just going to pause our game by calling start coroutine, which again is a function you need to call if you're calling anything that returns an IE numerator. Pause game, and we're just going to pause it for a second. So in our enemy controller, we are going to say if is frightened, then game manager dot ghost eaten. We're also going to say ghost node state equals ghost node state enum dot respawning. All right, let's give this a shot. We are not going to have everything working 100% yet, but hopefully it is working relatively well. Okay, we're just gonna, so game is running, was set to false, which means everything stopped except for our Pac-Man animation. So we want to make sure that our Pac-Man animation is not turned on if we are not running. So we'll worry about that later though. You'll notice the ghost immediately went back to its normal color. But it should be respawning. So it should go back into its home. Yes, okay, so it went back into its home and then it unrespawned. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, in our update function in our enemy controller, we just want to turn off our ghost's sprite if it's respawning, and we only want our eyes sprite to be on. So all we need to do is right here where we are showing our sprite, we're going to say if ghost node state does not equal ghost node state enum.respawning, then we want to show our ghost. Otherwise, we want to actually hide our ghost. Ghost sprite.enabled equals false. Okay, let's load that up. So now ideally it will go back to its home with just its eyes. Oh, okay. And so there's a bug there. We were able to get eaten by touching the eyes. So we'll deal with that in a second. Let's just see if it goes back to its home. Oh, it is currently doing something wrong. Let's actually just take a look at the ghost. Oh, it just took a long way around. And actually, because of the way the game's programmed, it does sometimes do that. So that was good. It wouldn't have been so noticeable if the speed of the ghost had been really fast. It would have just zipped right around. You're supposed to set the respawning speed to be really, really high. So the next thing we need to do is make it so that we don't do anything if we're respawning. So, and ghost node state does not equal ghost node state enum.respawning. So now we should pass right through the ghost's eyes, which is good because we don't want to be able to eat the ghost's eyes and we don't want to be able to get eaten by the ghost's eyes. So having them go right through you is the best option. Okay, let's try that out one more time. Perfect. Now we're going to have another audio source. So let's load that up in our game manager. And this is going to be a respawning audio source. Public audio source, respawning. Okay, and in our update function, as long as the game is running, we're going to say if red enemy controller or red ghost controller dot ghost node state equals ghost node state dot respawning, or, and we're going to do this for each one, so set pink and blue and orange. Then we're going to say if we're not already playing the sound. Actually, let's change this from respawning to respawning audio just so it's less confusing. So we're going to say if not respawning audio dot is playing. So if we're not already playing the sound, then we should be playing the sound. Else, if none of the ghosts are respawning, we're going to say if respawning audio is playing, then stop it from playing. Okay. And there are a few other things. We need another audio source for Ghost Eaten. Public audio source, Ghost Eaten audio. Okay, and in our Ghost Eaten, we're just going to set Ghost Eaten audio.play. And then add score, add to score. And we are going to add in 400 times our multiplier, power palette multiplier. So if it's the first ghost, it'll be 400. If it's the second ghost, etc. And then we need to do power palette multiplier plus plus. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a recap. So our player eats a pellet, and that pellet happens to be a power pellet. We are going to basically tell our game manager, run our power pellet timer and count down until it's 0, and when it hits 0, we're no longer running our power pellet. Then let all of our ghosts know that they should be frightened. So then, in our update, let's see, wherever that is, we're going to say, okay, is the power pellet running? If it is, run a timer, and when the timer reaches our power pellet timer, then we should no longer be running our power pellet, so turn it all off, and reset our multiplier, which is just our score multiplier. And then if we eat one of the ghosts while the power pellet is running, they will be in their respawning mode. So if any ghost is respawning, and we're not currently playing our respawning audio, then start playing it. If none of the ghosts are respawning, and it is still playing, then stop playing it. Now, if we go back to our enemy controller, we should, or not our enemy controller, our Unity instance, we should notice that when we eat a ghost, it should pause for a second, add immediately to our score, make a sound effect, and then the ghost should have its eyes and return back to home. So, responding audio of game manager has not been assigned, of course, and ghost eaten audio has not been assigned. Okay. So let's add some more audio sources. Retreating is respawning. And what was the next one? Eat ghost. Eat ghost. So we do not want eat ghost to loop, but we do want retreating to loop. So let's just drag that up here. Unfortunately, there's probably an easier way to do this. Feel free to let me know in the comments. And then we'll drag our ghost eaten in. And save our game and load it up. All right, let's eat our ghost. It added our score, and you can hear it's playing the respawning noise. So it should stop as soon as the ghost gets into its home. Which again, at this point, we're gonna set our speed to be really high. And it's no longer playing our respawning sound, and if we touch the ghost, we get eaten. Okay, that is great.